Hi, I'm going to attempt another on music, first one in a while. I've given up on trying to play the music while I'm talking about it, at least where the music can be audible to you guys so you can actually hear it and get something out of it. The way the sound equalization is and all this stuff, I don't know how all this webcam stuff works exactly, um, but it hasn't worked to my advantage trying to do it that way. So I will be listening to the music while I'm talking to you and probably also using some little notes online. But mainly I'm just going to talk about it, my impressions, and maybe some facts about the bands and albums. And I'm like I said in other videos, I'm going to do uh, stuff on YouTube that I've been listening to recently, either stuff that's new to me, bands that I'm checking out, um, or ones that I was already into and I'm kind of reacquiring their catalog, or at least the notable entries that I want. I did that with Mahavishnu Orchestra, which was a jazz rock fusion band, one of the most famous, and probably my favorite. Probably the heaviest and most interesting of those. They had the classic lineup had a very short career, but it made an indelible impression on a lot of people, including myself. That was many years after it made the impression on other people. Essentially, uh, I think McLaughlin had been like a British session player, and same period of people like Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Cream, and Richie Blackmore, and all these various guys kind of kicking around. Um, and you can tell that he came out of that mold. Um, there's a bit of Jeff Beck in him, and there's definitely some little Frippisms there. Fripp came a little bit later. Robert Fripp came a little bit later with that. Um, there's some tracks on the album Birds of Fire, including the title track. That's one that I got tonight. It's very much like King Crimson's middle period. I call it that, from the mid 70s when they were really at their most progressive as a prog rock band. I mean, later on they did progressive things and experimental things within different contexts and stuff with Adrian Belew and Onward projects and such. But um, that period with Fripp and David Cross on violin, Bill Bruford on drums, and John Wetton on vocals and bass. That's one of my favorite bands of all time. That lineup, it's my top five. So there's some similarities in Birds of Fire, that same, which was recorded a couple of years earlier, I guess, or possibly around the same time. And it's really, I don't know, just the guitar violin interplay and Jan Hammer on keyboards. Did I mention the band members on this? Probably not. Jan Hammer on keyboards, and he did a ton of other things. He went on to have some fame in the 80s as being the guy who did the music for Miami Vice, the TV show. That's where I first heard of him. Before I heard of, excuse me, Mahavishnu. But yeah, they had done an album called the Intermountain Flame in 1971, and it actually peaked at 11 in the Billboard Jazz Albums chart and 89 in the Billboard 200. Pretty wild. I guess it's that crossover with the rock kind of thing. It was all instrumental. Um, and they grew out of, I think it grew out of Miles Davis's groundbreaking electric period, which was like 67 to 75. And John McLaughlin was instrumental in that from the beginning. He's on In a Silent Way in 1967, and he's on the next several albums and contributes some great material to Bitches Brew and a little bit to On the Corner, and I believe some to Big Fun as well. There's a song on one of the albums that Miles Davis just calls John McLaughlin that he plays on. So, just that John McLaughlin. We'll just call it John McLaughlin. And then there's another one called Go On John or something like that, like, Go On John, start jamming. And I thought that was amusing. And Miles would name his songs just any old crazy thing. But often after people he knew or admired or I don't know. But people in his band. McLaughlin's Mahavishnu, is kind of, I think he was kind of tapping into some spiritual kind of stuff at this time, which that concern went on for many years of his life, and that's where the Mahavishnu thing came in, and he was kind of doing what Coltrane did in spiritual jazz music. Coltrane was kind of taking the saxophone to new heights to create transcendent sounds that were informed by his spiritualism. I think McLaughlin, with his kind of classic guitar where he's got the two heads to it, headstocks, the two fretboards, alternating, kind of like Jimmy Page had one of those. Lots of effects and just a lot of aggression and nimble fingers. Endless invention. McLaughlin was able to soar into the stratosphere like Coltrane. And, so in a way, he's a good heir to Coltrane's, the direction Coltrane was in when he passed away in 67. So anyway, they did Intermountain Flame, they did Birds of Fire in 1973, and they toured a lot, and they were having some internal disputes within the band, which seems to be the way of bands, especially when you've got like a leader who's playing a loud guitar and telling everyone what to play, and I've been in that situation, and he can be misread correctly or misread unfairly as being kind of dictatorial, depending on the person. I'm not sure what camp McLaughlin falls into. Obviously, he had a vision, and he wanted these guys, to execute it. But they went on to release their first live album, Between Nothingness and Eternity. And that was actually the first release of theirs that I owned. I got it for like $3 at Record Exchange here in Charlotte. Record Exchange doesn't exist anymore. They were based out of Virginia, had a number of stores in Charlotte and surrounding areas. They were one of my favorites, but I would get really cheap vinyl there. So like in 1990, I got Between Nothingness and Eternity for $3. It was used, but it was in incredible condition. So I was able to accrue quite an album collection within just a couple of years, a few short years, but mainly heavy collecting from 89 to 91. Then I went to CD. But this is kind of an interesting quote here about how the band was falling apart. And Billy Cobham, the drummer, did I mention him already? Billy Cobham was the drummer, Jerry Goodman was the violinist, and Rick Laird was the bassist. The reason I'm being a little bit confused is because I started shooting this video before, then I realized the thing wasn't on, and I was like 5, 6, 7 minutes into the video. So hopefully I'm not retreading anything I've said on this video. I think I'm just trying to remember what I said on that one and make sure I touch on it on this. But Billy Cobham, the drummer, was very disappointed, and I've got this quote here where he says, the group were knocking on the door of something really new, something unique, something that had never been done before in rock and roll. And that kind of also mirrors King Crimson's middle period, because when Fripp kind of unilaterally split up the band, I guess in 1975, Bruford and Wetton were disappointed because they were kind of on the cusp of being a band that was financially successful, doing whatever they wanted, their own vision of music, and continually pushing into improvisational territory. Um, so they had commercial and critical. Well, they were gaining commercial success, and they had some critical success. And musically within themselves, they felt like they were taking the music to something else, and kind of the stars were about to align where they could have had it all. And I understand Wetton was kind of depressed about it for a number of years. And if I were him, I would have been too. Um, but anyway, so Mahavishnu's time on the stage was not it was not very long with that lineup. They just did the 2 studio albums um, and the 1 live album. And then John McLaughlin went on to do the band with other members, all very notable people like Narada Michael Walden on drums, and Jean-Luc Ponty on violin, Ralph Armstrong on bass, a number of other musicians. But to me, that original lineup was kind of the band, Mahavishnu Orchestra, and the rest were like kind of John McLaughlin and really talented, guests. They weren't really a band. I mean, um, they didn't have the cohesion of the original band, which obviously that cohesion didn't last. But, so yeah, I reacquired those 3 albums this evening, and that was very exciting. There was also a live unreleased stuff album called. Sorry, it's on the copy. I'm just tired. Um, Called Wild Strings. It was over an hour, and I recorded that. Eager to dive into that. And what little I heard was really good. Um, so yeah, I'm going to go back over to YouTube here and look at my recent history, and we can talk about um, some of the thing. If I can get in there, right? Here we go. History. It's his story. All right, there it is. So, oh, I hit the wrong. Very sensitive. All right. So I'm just going to sweep down here and find some more albums that I was listening to earlier. I thought were very cool, very interesting. I've been listening to a lot of dub. Dub reggae is one of my favorite genres, and I've been digging into a lot of the King Tubby mixes that other people remixed of his mixes. Got stuff, collaborations, he did with Yabby U and Scientist remixing some stuff. Some good ones that I found were like Morewell Unlimited meet King Tubby's Dub Me, and I was thinking Morewell Unlimited must be a more recent reggae kind of outfit. Excuse me. And yeah, I found a few of those. These mixes by this guy called Frozen Mix, the originator, and he has done a series of like 13 things called Tracks from the Dub. And it's with the logo of Tales from the Crypt, and it's got these kind of horror puns on the cover with graveyards. And they're all strong. And he's got, all the major dub artists and producers represented, and he's kind of remixed it to where they kind of flow one into the other. And they're usually about an hour and 10 minutes long. But another one I really liked that I had recorded a while back, but that I went ahead and listened to again while I was, going through these was King Tubby with Soul Syndicate and album called Freedom Sounds and Dub, and it was great. There's also an incredible one called The Legendary Scatolites, or is it Scatolites in dub meet King Tubby. The Scatolites, was one of the pioneering ska bands, and very influential group, and it's kind of the old school ska. Their stuff was faster, than reggae. It wasn't quite as, hip hop and like the British stuff and the post punk British stuff, especially. Once you start getting into groups like the Selector, um, and then onward into like the '90s, where ska with Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and Operation Ivy and all these groups that became a huge thing for American white kids to do. But um, so this was kind of the roots of it, and I'm always interested in finding the roots of an art form. So I try to go back as far as possible and then kind of work my way through. But this is great. It's the legendary Skylights, and they're remixed and put into dub form, and it's just has a great vibe to it. Very melodic because their songs are melodic. Um, some of that ska kind of rhythm, but slowed down. Um, and one of the musicians who was in the Skylights or did sessions with them was Jackie Mittoo, and he's an organist. I guess he's the most well-known jazz organist of that period. He had a solo career and he did a lot of sessions, and then he was in a couple of these bands like that. Um, I also recorded a couple of his albums. Maca Fat was one, and I forgot the name of the other one that was really good. Drum Song, I think, is one he's got, but his stuff's very interesting. Um, I am going to go back a little bit here, and I'm going to go to my to be played thing here. Not to be played, but my history of things I have played. Let me see if I can do this, maneuver this without setting all of them off. And I'll find some interesting ones on here that I heard that I just think are interesting, regardless of whether I recorded them or listen to the whole album. I'll share them with you. There's all kinds of oddities that always keep coming up. One guy I guess I should mention along those lines is somebody I discovered a couple of days ago called Ghedelia Tazartes. So this is a French guy, and he's on this label called Cobalt. And 3 of his albums are on YouTube. So I've downloaded 2 of them, and I've listened to them. And there's another one, it's one called Jean, like the name, female French name, Jean. It came out in 2007. He either is still alive and very old, or else he passed recent years. I can't remember. But Ghedelia is indescribable. So one album is called Diasporas. I don't know, different people pronounce that different ways. It's pretty indescribable. It was apparently a favorite of Stephen Stapleton of Nurse's Wound, and I can definitely see that influencing Nurse's Wound. It has a lot of that abstraction, kind of long periods where there's quiet and there's just little sounds you're kind of almost straining to hear, and then absurd sounds and weird instruments, or like kind of like Einstürzen Neubauten, almost, where you have just kind of found instruments and you're making these sounds. And then at certain times it coheres into music, and then sometimes he does beats, and he does some. It's in French. The vocals are in French, and he does like kind of these French folk chants. Then he does kind of like these doomy, repetitive, kind of almost industrial kind of things, but they never really. One style never really prevails for long. He's got a short attention span, but that's what's exciting about it. To me anyway. His vocals are sometimes, I think, they're intentionally humorous, intentionally off key. They're very boisterous. He pretty much does he sings, but he doesn't sing in a traditional sense very often. Sometimes, like I said, he's out of key, but sometimes he's in key, but he's kind of screaming and moaning, and just making all these gurgling kind of sounds, and he's conveying a lot of kind of raw emotion, and I really like that kind of vocal, even if it's not technically brilliant. Like, for instance, I like Graf von Baphomet of Psychonaut 4 and Zapaudia. I'm very impressed with him, but he's a he kind of acts out and is dramatic and in anguish, but he also screams a lot at the top of his lungs. Ghedelia rarely does that. He rarely goes into that Ian Gillan territory. But he does go into the kind of moaning and anguished kind of sounds, and I'm feeling it. It's intense. He does more of that kind of stuff on the later album that I got a hold of here, called, if I can find it. I think the French title translates as Total Eclipse of the Sun, and it's 1984. And this one was really interesting, and it had a variety of moods. Some of the riffs, the kind of pounding industrial riffs, were really heavy and very doomy. And then he's got some vocal parts, like I said, that are really just kind of stretching his voice and stretching. See, a lot of it's in French, and the way he delivers his lines, or his lyrics, which is totally non-conventional. It's really hard to understand anything he's saying. I don't know if I'd have an easier time with it in English or not. Probably not, because I mean, look at the Cocteau Twins, But by the end of the album, I felt I'd gotten through quite an experience. It's like an hour-long album. Like I said, it's a total eclipse of the sun, and that's the translation. And I'm gonna actually go to it. Un Eclipse Total de Soleil, 1984, full LP. And, it has tape loops. It has odd little juxtapositions. It has little children talking and chanting and French folk hymns. But it has a heavier overall feel to it than Diasporas. It isn't quite as whimsical. It's a little darker, I think, and maybe the title is an indication of that. And I think it's a more fully realized work. Now, I haven't heard the Jean album yet, and I don't know what other albums he has, but those are the only three that I can find thus far on YouTube. So that was an exciting discovery. And, there's several others. I won't go on for too terribly long, but I would like to touch on a few things. Other dub albums, of course, they're kind of been on my rotation. And then some things I've bookmarked and have not really had a chance to listen to in much of any kind of depth. Yeah, a lot of the dub people, Yabby Yu and Jackie Mittoo, I mentioned him. One guy is Pete Namlook, and he's an ambient artist, and I had never heard of him until a few weeks ago. Apparently, he's one of the preeminent premier ambient artists, and he's deceased now, unfortunately. His real name was Peter Kuhlmann, German, and he, kind of anglicized it to Coolman or Kuhlmann, and then, reversed it to Namlook. So Namlook has done a ton of albums, and they're like thematic, and he's done like some in several parts, like 3 albums, and then with different collaborators doing different kind of moods and tones. It goes from like spacey to just wide open ambient to like rhythmic, almost like industrial rhythms, to just strange sounds. But they have I don't know how much of it is improvised and how much of it is composed, but they definitely seem to move. Pieces seem to move in an arc, and create a mood. So some people have jammed together, the multi-part um, album projects into one for YouTube recording's sake. For instance, there's one here called Pete Namlook and Lorenzo Montana Labyrinth. There's five-part piece project, and they put together a 5 hour, 1 minute, 3 seconds piece here with all of them, one after the other. And to be honest, I kind of like that. That really makes them kind of lives up to the ambient thing, because you can put it on, you can kind of drift in and out of sleep, and you'd be getting all this kind of, and I did, and it's wonderful. And he's got some other ones kind of like that. There's one, if I can find them. May not have them all up on this right at the moment. Let's see. There's one that's just kind of a regular hour one. I thought I was listening to these earlier. He did some material with Klaus Schultz, and that's pretty a big deal. He's got a bunch. The Ambient Gardener, Air is a really nice one. Then he's got this project called Shadow. It's like an acronym. I don't know what it stands for. SHADO. And he's got something called Higher Intelligence Agency, or maybe Higher Intelligence Agency is the project name, and Shadow is just the name of the album. And he's got a Shadow 1 and a Shadow 2. But yeah, I can talk about him more next time, I think. There's like some other interesting stuff I'm looking at right now that I've been delving into Bill Laswell and his ambient stuff. The Axiom Ambient collection, the particularly long one, is it's amazing. And he's done a lot of dub stuff, and he brings together all kinds of musicians from all over the spectrum, and kind of has them work together. So let me see. It seemed like there was one or two other things I wanted to just touch on. Yeah, I found a strange one on the Bill Laswell tip. I found a thing called Buck Jam Tonic from 2003. It's a little group with John Zorn, Bill Laswell, and Tatsuya Nakamura. It's really cool. And you may remember John Zorn's project with Bill Laswell and the drummer from Napalm Death. I think his name was Mick Harris. And they did a really intense, heavy thing called Painkiller in the mid 90s. Good stuff. And of course, Laswell was in Last Exit, where you had four kind of formidable kind of avant jazz people in one band. Laswell on bass and Ronald Shannon Jackson on drums. And then you had Peter Breutzmann, he's kind of just a monster European free jazz sax player, and the great Sonny Chirac, a very underrated electric guitar player who was doing experimental stuff in the '60s, contemporaneously with cats like Hendrix and Phil Upchurch and these kind of guys, but didn't quite get the attention. He wasn't really discovered until kind of late in his life. He started doing a lot more stuff. I'm going to go ahead and expand this, and I'm going to look at, just to make sure I didn't miss anything that I really wanted to talk about. So bear with me a minute. I'll flip through here, and I'll be right back with you. I'm still here. You can see me, but I can't see you. No, I can't see you anyway, but I feel you. Yeah, a lot of that I put aside that I bookmarked that I haven't listened to yet. This sounded interesting. Various groups that I wasn't as familiar with, like Cosmic Dealer and Exit 9. Um, a bunch of Pete Namlook stuff. Some things by Leyland Kirby, also known as the Caretaker. His albums are really they're haunting, and the way they're constructed is, I don't know, it's amazing. They're you kind of have to be in the mood though. They're eventually it begins to wear on you. To me anyway. I mean, emotionally maybe or mentally fatiguing me. It's kind of like I kind of think he should have done some of the music to David Lynch's Inland Empire, but he's got these albums, a few under the name The Caretaker, but he's got a couple under Leyland Kirby, Eager to Tear Apart the Stars, and Sadly the Future is No Longer something. And then, I've got some other little weird surprises here and there. And I'll probably will just go ahead and try to get back to those next time. So I'll probably talk about some more dub, and also I want to talk about some kind of previously undiscovered material with Ronnie James Dio that I happened upon on here. That's kind of they're all treasures. I mean, I'm not saying they're all of incredible quality or equal quality, but it's wonderful to hear them. And like I said, lots more dub and a bunch of European and Asian prog. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of whet your appetite for that. Talk a little bit about some groups, and just give me an idea of what I'd like to accomplish with this series of videos going forward. I'll probably be doing it like this for a little while before I get into tackling any kind of biographical or in-depth things like I'd done with Sabbath. But I haven't forgotten about those ideas. I just think this would be more interesting, more fun for me to just kind of discuss this stuff, give you guys some recommendations. So yeah, I would say check out Mahavishnu Orchestra. Check out Pete Namlook. Check out King Tubby and Yabby U, and the bottomless well of great dub reggae music. And that guy, I'm going to say his name wrong, Ghedelia Tazartes. If you're in the ultra weird mood and experimenting with deep listening here. So next time, take care. I'll see you soon.